Fellas, today we're going to be going over how to complete Solstice of Heroes 2023. Now, first and foremost, I want to mention you do not need to purchase the upgraded event card for those wanting to participate in Solstice. It's entirely optional. And I've said it for a while now. The event card is honestly one of the worst deals inside of Destiny. Do you get a few cosmetics? Yes. But in my opinion, it's a complete waste of 1,000 silver. Granted, who am I to tell you how to spend your money? And if you're looking to grab yourself the new exotic ship, or other event rewards from the event card, you'll need to complete the event challenges with an upgraded card to get yourself some tickets. Now, if you can't see the challenges yet, don't worry, you unlock them as part of the Solstice quest. But first, let's just do a walkthrough the celebrating Solstice quests. First, you need to go see Grandma Eva in the tower and talk to her to pick up your new Solstice armor. It will be a set. It will also be 1810. And make sure you have enough room in each armor slot for all 5 pieces, or you won't actually be able to pick up the armor container. Now, step 1, equip your full set of Sunlit Armor. Step 2, visit Eva Levante in the tower and pick up these silver leaves that she has to offer you. And then step 3, complete the Bonfire Bash activity to then transform your silver leaves into silver ash. Now, Bonfire Bash is the Solstice activity that you will need to grind to complete this event. It takes place in the EAZ similar to previous years. The major difference here is that each run is a bit quicker, with it being a bit easier to move around the map with the Cabal cannons. Granted, back in the day, we used to actually be able to use our sparrows to traverse the map, but at least moving vertically with the Cabal cannons, it is easier. Now, how do you do Bonfire Bash? The way Bonfire Bash works is you will encounter glowing high value targets called ignition carriers. Killing those carriers will drop an igniter that you will deposit into the bonfire to stoke flames. Now, what's great about these igniters is they will literally magnetize to the bonfire, so you can actually throw them from across the map, and as long as your line of sight is clear or no one actually jumps in front of it, you will hit the bonfire. So you do not have to run back and forth to deposit these igniters. Now, while trying to stoke the fire, taking interference will hinder your progress. You'll need to defeat them to reignite the bonfire. Now, I want to mention while stoking the bonfire, you'll have little waypoints that pop up that will give you kind of like general areas that adds are spawning in. But you can also like split up your team if you want to hit those areas, or you could just move to each one of these locations together, because as you are together, the perk Firebound will be proccing. This actually speeds up the amount of increased recovery and super regeneration as long as you are close to a fire team member, which is honestly pretty nice. You can also proc Flare, which is a buff available in both Bonfire Bash and Vanguard Ops playlists, where rapidly defeating combatants will unleash waves of paracausal fire around you, dealing damage to nearby combatants. So little things like this, guys, allows you to pretty much have high uptime in your abilities. Keep going back and forth to each one of these waypoints, clearing ads, pick those igniters up, throw them into the bonfire, and then when you get that prompt to eliminate taking interference, you will get another waypoint, except this waypoint is normally up high on one of the buildings. And this is when you want to use the Cabal cannons to actually shoot up to these areas. You can save your supers for here, run in, clear everything out. And what's so nice about these areas too is there also is a heavy ammo crate that you can pick up before or after, just to top off some of your heavy. Now, the taking interference normally runs twice. I don't think it will run 3 times. And I think it is somewhat tied to how many igniters are spawned, not necessarily how many igniters are consumed. But roughly somewhere around like 9 to 10 did that interference pop up. And then around like 20, we had to eliminate more taking interference. Again, nothing super difficult here, but upon depositing 30 ignites, this will then spawn the final boss. That boss will spawn in the middle, really not necessarily that powerful. A couple of supers, some of the heavy ammo crates that you picked up. Even with blueberries, you should be able to handle this boss no problem. Now, upon defeating the boss, that will end the activity, which will spawn rewards at the base of the bonfire. Now, you'll receive a variety of rewards, but really it's split between either the Sunlit Armor or the weapons. That being the Compass Rose shotgun, the Something New hand cannon, and the Precision Frame Crowning Duologue, which is our very first strand rocket launcher. We will be reviewing these this week. Now, upon completing this activity, you want to have Sunlit Armor equipped. And guys, this is very important because Eva initially will give you 6 leaves. But if you only have 1 piece of armor equipped, the conversion there will simply just be 1 to 1. Initially, I actually just had my class item on, and after I completed the event, instead of getting 30 ash, which is what my teammates got, I simply got 6 ash. So again, equipping multiple pieces of armor will increase that conversion rate. And again, I know the armor pieces are not good. And if you're in a situation where you taking your exotic armor piece is crippling your build, well guys, by all means, still keep that exotic armor piece on. Just have Sunlit Armor on everywhere else. And before someone asks, no, ornaments do not work. We even tried an ornament, not from a previous year, but this year. We used synth weave, we applied it, and no, ornaments do not count. At least at the time of making this guide. I know, it's a bummer. Now, upon doing this, guys, you'll be able to visit Eva Levante back in the tower if you had those armor pieces on, because this will finish out the quest. Again, this step of the quest requires you to both enter the EAZ and acquire 20 silver ash. Now, if you run into a situation where you're like, Cross, I didn't have the armor on, therefore I didn't get a high enough conversion rate and don't have enough ash to complete this quest, don't worry. Literally completing any activity in the game will drop you these silver leaves. And we're going to talk about how to farm for silver leaves in just a moment. Now, after visiting Eva Levante in the tower, you then need to open your event card and claim your first event challenge. Claiming this challenge will reward you with a piece of Kindling. Now, next you will need to add the Kindling you earned from completing the event challenge to any piece of Sunlit Armor. Now, it's really interesting here, guys. Once you apply this Kindling, you can then spend silver ash to imbue the armor with embers that improves it. Now, each tier will require more Kindling. First tier is just 1, second tier will be 2 Kindling, and then finally you have to apply 3 Kindling. And all the Kindling here is only acquired through completing the event challenges. This is also where you're gonna learn how to roll stats on your armor. Now, a couple things I wanna go over before you complete this quest. You apply Kindling, and after each tier of applying Kindling, you then apply ash. And it'll actually say that imbuing armor with embers increases its stats most of the time, but there's a small chance that its stat total will decrease. So keep that in mind, guys. Literally, as you're sitting here applying silver ash, it could actually drop your stats. And again, every time you apply Kindling, this will then allow you in the next slide over to apply the ash. And this is where you can actually get to the point on the 3rd tier to focus your piece of armor. Now, when it comes to focusing armor, it says right here that imbuing armor with a spark guarantees a minimum of +20 in its corresponding stats. Now, guys, you can go to your ghosts, and for instance, right here, like I picked a recovery mod on my ghosts, but you could do this for any stat, but just pick one of these armor mods. Then you can go back to that Sunlit Armor and select the other stat that you want. So I picked resilience. Now, what this ultimately means is that I got a stat roll of pretty much everything in recovery and resilience afterwards. And guys, that's essentially it every single time. After completing this quest step, you'll talk to Eva again, and she'll essentially give you that same exact quest again, but now you're gonna do it to all of your other armor pieces. It's just essentially a rehash of the same thing. Now, let me just say this before we get into the armor rerolling. You do not need to do any of this at all if you're just here to get the weapons. If you just want the weapons, you don't even need to have silver leaves in your inventory. Matter of fact, I deleted my silver leaves. I went in there and ran Bonfire Bash just to see if it would drop, and it did. You do not have to have silver leaves, guys. You can just run this activity over and over, and what will drop at the end for you will be either one of these 3 weapons or a piece of armor. Again, it's just purely RNG. What you do want to make sure of is that in the activity, no matter what, you get to those 30 ignitions as quickly as you can before that timer runs out. At least to my understanding, that seems to impede on how many rewards you get at the end of this activity. I only got 26 on my first run, and I only got 1 drop. But again, if you're looking to just get weapons, guys, you do not even have to entertain silver leaves, silver ash, or any of this. Now, in order to fully unlock the ability to get yourself higher stat rolls on the Sunlit Armor, plus the glow, which is going to require you to fully level up a piece of gear, apply all the materials, etc. But once you have actually leveled up one piece of gear fully, for instance, my Sunlit Plate, which is my chest armor piece, every piece I purchased afterwards did not require Kindling. It simply just requires ash, which is going to require leaves. Let's talk about how to get leaves the fastest. There are a number of ways to get leaves that we try today, including Grandmaster Nightfalls, Crucible Games, Gambit, as well as Altar of Sorrows. Now, let me just say, Altar of Sorrows seems to be the best, at least legitimately. There is a cheese, and we're going to go over the cheese in just a moment. Shout out the cheese forever. But Alter seems to be the best legitimate way to get silver leaves. And essentially, upon completing every single wave of sorrows, you will get 1 leaf. Now, keep in mind, while picking up patrols, completing patrols in this area while doing Alter Sorrows has a chance to also drop another leaf. Again, it's RNG, but there is a chance. Now, when you equip Sunlit Armor, while doing all of this, you have a chance of earning more leaves. As in, instead of getting 1 leaf, you can get 2. And then completely finishing out Alter Sorrows, killing the boss, you will get a ton, somewhere around 15 at base with no armor on, to around like 20 just for completing that final boss. Again, this is the best way to legitimately do this if the cheese happens to get patched. All in all, with Sunlit Armor on, you can get somewhere around like 25, maybe even more leaves per entire run of Alter Sorrows, which takes roughly 15 minutes. Now on to the cheese method. Currently this week, guys, the very first mission for the Lightfall campaign is the weekly mission. It's called First Contact. You can actually checkpoint trade on this mission. Essentially, guys, do this mission all the way until you get to the end where you have to hop onto a Cabal drop pod. But again, don't go all the way in there and actually launch the drop pod. This is where you're going to want to trade checkpoints. Hop on another character, join back up, and then proceed to finish the mission out. Now, this will actually drop you around 14 to 15 leaves, which is really nice. Then you'll jump back on the character that you were originally on. You'll still have the checkpoint for this mission. Your teammates will then join back on you again. You'll then want to swap back to the character you want to actually finish this mission on, as to not lose the checkpoint. And guys, just rinse and repeat. You can literally just do this over and over again until you max out on leaves. Now, you can only hold up to 100 leaves. So that means you're going to have to eventually go back into the AZ and convert those leaves into ashes. I also want to point out that doing this cheese doesn't actually progress the challenges itself. And you need challenges for kindling if you're looking to apply that, which is why Alter Sorrows is so good, because there's so many challenges, whether it's defeating bosses or just doing altars itself, which is actually one of the challenges. You're actually able to knock out a number of these challenges through Altars of Sorrow itself, thus giving you kindling and allowing you to unlock those armor pieces fully to then allow you to start re-rolling pieces, which takes us to re-rolling your Sunlit Armor pieces. After you completed that above quest step on your armor piece, you can then turn around and purchase armor directly from Eva Levante, which is going to be a low stat roll piece. Now keep in mind, you can already purchase this, except before you complete the quest, it would want you to apply kindling. But it's after you've already applied kindling to that one piece of armor and ash and gone through the quest process for that single piece of armor. For example, my Sunlit Plate Chest armor piece. Then whenever I pick up that same piece of armor from Eva Levante, I do not have to reapply kindling. All I have to do after this point is just apply ash. Now initially when you apply 20, and you'll notice this whenever you're doing the quest, it will actually bump up your stat roll. Now I can bump it up to the 60s. Again, this will cost you 20 ash, and then when applying 40 more ash, this will bump up your stats a little more. Now I actually went from a 46 stat roll piece to a 60 stat roll piece to a 62 stat roll piece. So we're not talking like huge jumps here in stats. Again, I know this is like RNG. And then finally, you'll have the ability to actually target a stat. And that's when you do that plus 20. And again, change out your ghost mod accordingly. And this too has a chance of increasing your stats. I went from 62 all the way to a whopping 63. I know. But Cross, that sounds terrible. Matter of fact, that sounds awful. Not only is Artifice armor better than this, there are other ways we can re-roll armor through our season that is better than this. I know, you're right. Which is why, guys, this is really not the best activity for giving yourself high stat rolls. Unless Bungie comes down and says something, this event really is for free-to-play players that don't have access to high stat roll armor pieces. And I know there is a chance to get higher stat rolls, but I did this on a number of pieces, and the highest I got was around 64, which in comparison to my Artifice armor, or pretty much any other stat roll pieces that I have, that's just much weaker. The benefit here is the ability to roll where you want the stats. And hopefully, RNG will treat you right. Outside of that, guys, the weapons is essentially what I'm going to be going for the most. I want to get the 120 round per minute hand cannon. Yes, it can roll with rapid hit and kill clip. I want to try out Compass Rose, which can roll fragile focus. And I know no one's really crazy about fragile focus, but it did get a buff here recently, which adds a nice bump there to range. And this happens to be a precision shotgun, which precisions are very good. And we'll also be trying out without the rocket launcher. Again, just running the activity, getting to those 30 ignitions without any silver leaves will still net you weapon drops. You do not need leaves in order for these things to drop, but you do need to complete the activity within that set amount of time and do everything you can to get to those 30 ignitions. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.